how to use psychedelics to catalyze your spiritual development. Now, like I said in the disclaimer at the beginning of this video, I do not recommend using psychedelics. There are potential dangers to using them, and depending on what perspective you're analyzing it from, they could make your life a whole hell of a lot worse. If you're not willing to potentially go through an existential crisis, don't use them. If you're not willing to have everything you thought you knew about reality and how life works completely turned upside down, do not use psychedelics. If you're not willing to go through extreme emotional labor, don't use psychedelics. That doesn't mean all of those things will happen, but if you take your spiritual growth very seriously, they probably will happen at one point or another. Basically, what I'm saying is that if you feel 100% content with your life and you just feel very comfortable, you're happy, and have no desire to seek something deeper, then just don't take psychedelics. It'll only ruin that comfort. It'll make you question everything you ever knew about life, and that can bring so much suffering that can be very uncomfortable to deal with. If that's you, just click out of this video now because there's just no need to watch the rest. But with that being said, there are genuine reasons for wanting to get into this, because what psychedelics do is they make the unconscious conscious. They reveal to you your blind spots. They reveal to you the darkest pits of your psyche. They reveal the emotional wounds within you. They reveal to you every fear that you have, and it is through facing these head on that you will heal yourself and develop spiritually. And also through this, you can have profound, direct insights into the nature of reality, also called awakenings. You can also have an awakening to know self, that the ego is actually just an illusion. You can have an awakening to oneness. You can have an awakening to the nature of love. All these are really just different sides to the same coin, but this is the stuff that some of the OG religious prophets have been pointing towards for thousands of years. And when you have one of these awakenings, this is where your view on how reality works will completely and utterly change you as a person for the better if you don't run away from the awakening and you seek to integrate it into your life. So when it comes to using psychedelics in the context of spiritual development, it's really about using them to heal the divisions that exist within you. Because as we go through life, we all build up an identity or an ego, which all it is just a web of beliefs, labels, and assumptions that we project onto ourselves. And this gives us comfort, meaning, a sense of purpose, a sense of direction in life, and the ego loves comfort. And when we're fully identified with it, this ego becomes the most important thing in the world to us because, well, we actually believe it's who we are. So we think this web of thoughts, labels, and belief is actually us, so our entire life becomes about defending this web or spinning the web in a new way that suits whatever needs and desires we have. So if you fear dying or losing a part of yourself, all you really fear is losing this web. You fear losing your identity. That's all death entails. And you might ask, why is this a bad thing? Doesn't the ego suit our survival? Well, yes, it does, but a lot of this ego web is unhealthy, contributing both to our individual suffering as well as the world suffering when we project our darkness outwards. The nature of this work is actually killing parts of yourself, parts of your identity. So yes, this fundamentally goes against your ego's natural instinct to preserve itself, which is why this work is so emotionally laborious. So within all of us exist limiting beliefs such as I'm ugly, I'm worthless, I'm bad at this, or I'm bad at that, or I'm terrible at making money, or I'm terrible at making friends, no one likes me, etc. That just holds us back from doing what we truly want to do in life, which is why I call these divisions, because it's just a division in our psyche that prevents us from feeling whole and doing what we really want to do. And also, all of us all have emotional wounds and traumas that we carry within us. Some of them are more severe than others, things such as being rejected, abandoned, problems with parents, problems with relationships, being abused as a kid, etc. And in addition to this, we can also carry biases within us, often very subconsciously, that are by nature divisive. Things like being subtly racist or subtly sexist or subtly hating someone and just acting out in alignment with that. Things that you can really only catch within yourself through radical honesty. So there's all sorts of types of divisions that can exist within your psyche. Like I said, some of them cause more harm than others, but the point is that we want to eradicate the poisonous things that exist within our web, that is the ego, the stuff that causes, like I said, our own individual suffering and also causes suffering to others when we project it out onto the world. So what psychedelic work is really about is removing all the shit from our web that no longer serves us and the greater good of humanity. And if you take spiritual development really deep, it becomes about getting rid of the web entirely, because you realize the web itself is the very thing holding you back from becoming the unbounded, infinite oneness that you are. So, like I just said, this work is about healing the divisions that exist within you, which in turn help heal the divisions within the world, because all the collective of humanity is the buildup of all our own individual psyches. So the divisions that exist within humanity, like racism, sexism, classism, nationalism, thinking your religion is superior to others, and any other division that you can think of that exists on a societal level, recognize that all of those only came into existence because they first existed within the people. So the more divisions you have within you, the less you can embody unconditional love. In other words, the more divisions you have within you, the more partial your love is. Because if you only love what your ego loves, then you're only going to love what can serve your very narrow, flawed agenda. You have to love for the sake of loving. So why do people love Jesus so much? It's because his love was literally boundless. And why do you think people hate Hitler so much? It's because his love was so incredibly partial. He loved the vision he had for Germany, but then said to hell with everything else. He said, I will literally kill millions of people in order to actualize my own ego's vision for Germany because, well, I just love my vision more than the lives of those people. Now, I haven't researched extensively on the life of Hitler, but I'm willing to bet he went through some shit and trauma as a kid and accumulated a lot of emotional wounds in his childhood that led him to becoming the monster that he became. Now, I don't want anyone in the comments saying I'm excusing his actions. I'm not doing that at all. But what I'm saying is that evil is born from divisions, and the more divisions you have within you, the more likely you are to do evil things. So the point of really doing this work is to heal your divisions, and then through doing that, the more awakened consciousness you bring to this world. And then through this, the collective of humanity will gradually heal. And what better way is there to live than to become and spread pure goodness? So before I talk about how to set up your trips in order to attain maximum benefit, I want to go over some traps that people can fall into when getting into this work and just give you some general advice before you ever actually get started. So really listen up here, because being aware of the traps is absolutely crucial. So what I would say the main thing to keep in mind is to not go too deep too fast, because there's a good chance your ego just won't be able to handle it. And I'm speaking about this from direct experience. So when I first got into psychedelics, I did like 6 trips in about an 8-week span, and that is just way too much. It was very irresponsible and dumb of me, because when I was finally done with the last trip and said, all right, I'm done for a while, I'm just going to integrate what I've learned, I had an absolute mountain of stuff to integrate. The mountain being so big that it seemed like an impossible task to even begin to integrate. It was so overwhelming that I was severely depressed and had suicidal thoughts for like 2 weeks, because I was just so out of alignment with who I actually wanted to be after having these profound insights, and I knew it would take so much work to get there. And also just because everything was so novel to me and paradigm shattering, part of me thought I was going insane and losing my mind, but looking back on it, I wasn't going insane. I was simply having a natural reaction to having my entire paradigm about reality drastically change in such a short period of time. And looking back on it, I think any sane person would have thought they were going insane if they had 6 deep psychedelic trips with no prior experience in a 2-month span. So if I could go back on it, I would have not tripped so many times in such a short period of time. That would have saved me a lot of unnecessary suffering. I much rather would have spread those out over an entire year or something. And also the fact that I had no experience in any other spiritual practices like a meditation beforehand definitely contributed to my inability to handle what I had experienced. So if you are an experienced meditator, you probably can handle a lot more than someone who does not meditate, just because you're better able to work through any uncomfortable sensations that arise, and you can just more easily see past and get through the ego's resistance. Another trap of psychedelics is adding the insights to your ego and beginning to think you're all woke and more enlightened than everyone else. Now, I would like to point out that if you are taking spiritual work very seriously, you will actually be more highly conscious than the average person. But if you gain any sense of superiority from it and you're creating a duality between you and everyone else, and you're not embracing everyone and everything, then you're completely missing the point. So don't be one of those people. All right, so now I'm going to actually get in and talk about how to actually set up your trip so you can obtain maximum success. So when you use psychedelics specifically for spiritual purposes, you probably shouldn't use them in the traditional way that many people use psychedelics, like at parties or at raves or something else like that. And while I'm not saying it is bad to use them this way or that you can't have a life-changing positive experience this way, I'm saying that using them in these settings is not as effective as taking them completely alone with no distractions. Now, I don't actually mean completely alone, have a trip sitter on standby when you're doing this, because you will be partially or totally out of touch with reality, but just be somewhere where you are safe, can be alone with your thoughts, no distractions, don't go on your phone. You can even turn all the lights off so you aren't distracted by any visual sensations, and so that you are literally only with your thoughts and nothing else, because it is within your own psyche that all your divisions lie, your limiting beliefs, your wounds, your traumas, everything about you that holds you back and makes you suffer. And when you have no distractions, your entire psyche is exposed completely naked right in front of your eyes. All your blind spots will be revealed. So you need to focus on what you're going to do pre-trip, during the trip, and post-trip. Each of these 3 stages are extremely important. Don't neglect the preparation, and absolutely do not neglect the integration. So when it comes to preparation, obviously you want to know what substance you're taking so you know how long you're tripping, so you can take the proper precautions for that. And I'm not going to talk about substances here. I have plenty of other videos on that. But if you're doing a longer trip like LSD or mushrooms, then you'll need a safe and secure environment for several hours. But if it's a shorter trip like DMT, you won't need nearly as much time. But whatever you're taking, I would recommend having the entire day free, so you can dedicate that entire day to your spiritual growth. Because if you have a lot of chores to do, or if you have to go to work later, or if you need some sort of deadline that has to be met soon, then that is something that has a potential to be nagging at your subconscious, and that will make the experience less profound. So carve out an entire day, and like I said earlier, the deepest spiritual work is done when you are alone, just sitting in your room with as little distractions as possible. That doesn't mean you must do it that way. Like I said, that's just what I recommend. And most importantly, have intention. What are you seeking out of the experience? Is there a specific emotional wound or something within your psyche that you want to work on specifically? Or are you seeking to have an awakening? Or are you just seeking to experience what the substance has to show you? So basically, the intention is just sets a general guideline for your trip. Maybe the substance will take you somewhere completely different. Who knows? Different substances deal with different experiences. And more often than not, you're shown what you are needed to be shown rather than what you necessarily want to be shown. So all of this is why good preparation is key. And basically the last step, and probably the most important, is your integration. Without integration, the psychedelic will not transform you. Remember, the psychedelic is the catalyst for your spiritual development. It gives you insights that you never could have generated in your normal everyday state of consciousness, but then the task is to bring those insights back to your everyday life. So there are things you should do when it comes to integration, and there are also things you should not do. So what you should do the moment your trip is over is write everything down. The entire thing. Everything you can remember, write it down. Because psychedelic trips are kind of like dreams. When you wake up in the morning after you have a dream, you can remember a good portion of it, but once you get on with your day, the entire dream flies right out of your brain, and you forget pretty much all of it. So what people do is they keep dream journals, in order to remember their dreams better, and the same process can apply to psychedelic trips. Write everything you possibly can once the trip is over. I've had documents with like 4,000 or 5,000 words before on them, so it might take a while to do this, but once you've done this, you should take a couple hours to just calm down and passively reflect on what you just experienced. Maybe go for a walk or a hike or a drive, something that allows you to really just sit and think about what this trip has shown you and what it can do for you, and how you can bring the insights back into your life to just make your life overall more harmonious. And this integration phase, this post-trip phase, it never really ends if you've made the lifelong commitment, as you should, to growing yourself spiritually. This video is about how to use psychedelics as a catalyst for spiritual development, because that's all they are. They're nothing more than a catalyst. They show you powerful insights, they show you your blind spots, and then from that, you really only grow once you do the work after the trip. You will never become a saint just from doing psychedelics alone. You gotta do the work, you gotta embody it every single day. I highly recommend starting a daily meditation practice, because developing mindfulness is one of the most effective ways to integrate the wisdom into your life. But really, the majority of the work you need to do afterwards comes from your own insight, because a spiritual journey for everyone is deeply, deeply personal. So I really hope this video helped you. And I do want to emphasize again what I said at the beginning of the video, is that I don't just recommend people to do this, to take psychedelics. I'm not like, hey, you should try some acid or you should do some DMT or something. It's not like that. I'm just putting this video out to help people who already want to get into psychedelic work do the work better, because this shit is life-changing. It can give you an existential crisis. It's emotionally laborious, and lots of suffering happens on this journey. So that's why I don't just tell you to do psychedelics. And when it comes to spiritual development, never rely just on, psychedelics alone. Other practices like meditation and contemplation and certain types of yoga can be really, really profound. Just in the past few months, from doing some deep contemplative practices myself, I've had some very profound insights just from that, completely natural with no substance. So definitely do not use only psychedelics when it comes to your spiritual journey. I kind of just use psychedelics as something to do a few times a year, a peak experience that gives you the most profound insights, and then you go and try to integrate that for a few months, because there's always so much to integrate. Sometimes there's a lifelong worth of stuff to integrate, and then when you feel ready again, go and take another trip. But yeah, that's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed it. Follow me on Instagram. That's probably the easiest way to message me directly if you want to get a hold of me. And if you have a few extra dollars to shell out, consider joining the Patreon. We have a book club on there where we read a book once a month about topics we go over on this channel, psychedelics, spirituality, consciousness, all that sorts of stuff. And I'm looking to get a few more people involved so that I can really get the ball rolling on there and we can have some really deep conversations, because there's a few people right now, but I want to get some more. So if that interests you, definitely consider joining. And that's all I got for this video, guys. And as always, have a great day and peace.